So Carrie, when you applied, you were placed on the waiting list.
Hmm.
And how long did you sit on the waiting list, and what actually happened to, were you a lucky lottery winner, or did something else
Uh,
happen?
Somewhat lucky, yes. Somewhat some perseverance on my end. So I had heard, being on Facebook groups and stuff, get on the wait list the day she turns 3. Put in your application. Is that still the limit, right? Age 3 is when you can
Age
apply.
three, age three.
Okay, so I had it ready. Her 3rd birthday, I believe I mailed it in. I didn't know your trick on not mailing it in. I mailed it in, waited, and heard back in a little while that she, I believe, was put on that high risk category,
Mhm.
and that we just had to wait. And I was like, no, because we were having such a hard time. She, her seizures and epilepsy had gotten worse, and her
Okay.
sleep apnea was so severe that alarms were going off all night long. And my husband at the time was in the military, and he is away for his day job as well. He was in the National Guard, and I was by myself probably 5 nights a week.
Oh,
I couldn't maintain this. I was almost
no.
dying.
Yeah.
And so I was so upset because I was like, my daughter is super severe. How is she just in this high risk category? But her syndrome is so rare that she didn't fit one of the the molds.
Hmm.
So I actually called my senator at the time. So this was 2017. No, sorry, she turned 3 in 2016. So 2016, I called my senator at the time, and then he put me in touch with Agency for Persons with Disability, the director, I
Okay.
believe at the time, or one of the staffers there. Because I didn't
Okay.
know. I had no idea what was going on. First of all, I'm in
No.
crisis. I can barely, function. And they told me, it sounds like your family's in crisis. And they, the staff at the time, helped me demonstrate what we needed to do to get Hazel just onto the wait list, which was I had to take her at 3 years old, nonverbal, in for an intellectual disabilities, like a
Yes.
test, an IQ test.
Yeah.
And so that's how, but I had to wait for that. I had to get the IQ test,
Mhm.
and Hazel's tiny and doesn't talk. It's like, how do you measure her
And it
IQ?
and it seems pretty pointless,
Yes, but I had to
but
jump through those hoops. So
yes.
I did that. She demonstrated that she had intellectual disability. So then that got us onto the wait list.
Hmm.
But then, since we were a family in crisis, because her medical needs had overnight pretty much become so severe, we learned about the sleep apnea. We started having, machines that told us when her oxygen was getting too low, things like that.
Wow.
So we demonstrated that I was not able to care for her by myself. My husband was gone a lot. I was, pretty much losing my mind. So then we had to do a lot of paperwork, jump through some hoops, demonstrate how often my husband was gone, things like that. And then finally 2017, so probably 6 to 9 months later, I was put on the waiver and we started to receive services.
Okay. So you went through what's now considered the crisis process, an actual
Yes.
process. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's wonderful that you were able to get on the waiver and access those
Mm-hmm.
services, but it's kind of disheartening to hear what level of sleep deprivation and
Yeah.
and
Yes.
how complex and how scary that had to have been with all of her
Mm-hmm.
medical
Yes.
diagnoses and issues. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, that was a very dark point in my life. And it was life changing to get the services. I mean, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who else to ask for help. I was, relying on my mom, who is, not equipped to handle this medical stuff, to help me overnight. And it
Right.
wasn't sustainable. So
Right.
it was life
Right.
changing. Hmm.
So can I ask, which service was the most relief immediately, and
The
how so?
nursing.
The nursing?
Absolutely. The nursing. Yeah. We started, to have, I believe night nursing came first. So that is a process too, finding the right
Yeah.
nurse. But
Hmm.
I was able to eventually train someone, have a medical professional there watching her so I could sleep. I was so sleep deprived. I was getting vertigo and like all of these, issues. So the sleep alone, being able to trust that she's cared for and being monitored so I could actually go to sleep, was life changing. And then having a nurse be with her so I could work during the day, that
Right.
allowed me to actually maintain my job. I'm not actually sure how I didn't get fired during that time because, how do you work?
Right.
Because she had been in school and that was what I was relying on for childcare. But then she
Right.
was having so many seizures, I couldn't send her to
Mhm.
school. So I don't
Yeah.
even remember how I worked at that point in time. But anyway, so then that was the next thing, is having a nurse. So now Hazel does stay home and she has a nurse with her. I believe, the nurse could go to school with her if she went to a private school at this point, but we do
Yes.
homeschool Hazel now, and she has a nurse
Mhm.
with her during the day while I'm working. And then at night, she can have a nurse be with her to monitor all of her oxygen and respiratory equipment overnight.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually the response I get from almost every parent. And then the other one I typically hear is the respite care.
Mm-hmm.
Because so the nursing is, obviously to keep her healthy and safe, and it's a higher
Mm-hmm.
level, but it is also to allow parents to work and to
Mm-hmm.
sleep.
Mm-hmm.
There's also such a thing as you and your husband are actually one of the few who are still married. A lot of the parents I work with say respite care saved their marriages because it
Wow.
allowed them to go have a date night. I mean, I work with parents who it's been 10 years since they've gone somewhere with just the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is one of the other things that Waiver doesn't necessarily get credit for, but I would credit it with probably saving a whole lot of marriages, because
Mm-hmm.
the stress level of just having a child and then adding in the medical complexities and the special needs are I mean, are
Mm-hmm.
beyond imagination. So
Mm-hmm.
your answer was pretty typical, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
it's life changing.
it is. It is, yeah, I
Yeah.
can't say that enough, and I don't use
Mm-hmm.
it.
Right. Well, thank